Hi, I'm Lou Rosalia, and today we're going to unpack two very different stories. One, is Zoom fatigue real? And second, are flight attendants really welcoming you on board when they're welcoming you on board? And to break it down, we have our usual industry experts, legends, all great men individually and together, a collective group of complete wonderfulness. And with us is Joe Scacciaferro, Frank Scacciaferro, and Scott Glozzi. And with that, let's talk about Zoom first and Zoom fatigue. So, guys, Stanford University came out with a study that women feel very, or at least extremely, fatigued after video conferencing, and compared to men, and by a factor of three, actually. So, compared to men, three times more, they are just totally wiped out. And they claim it's from the what's it called, the mirror box, that little box that we watch ourselves on with everybody in the other panels. So, with that in mind, and putting aside all the politics and the gender arguments, Gloz, when non-entertainment professionals see themselves on camera, do you think that they find it as helpful, or is it a distraction to them?
Well, I think it's a distraction because most people, besides women and men, and I'm guilty of this as well. When you're getting ready for a Zoom call, you're getting ready to be on camera. You're getting ready to present yourself, especially in like a meeting environment. So I don't think it's so much of a distraction, but I think people tend to pay a lot of attention on how they look rather than maybe the content or what's actually going on in the meeting. So now not only are you having a meeting with your colleagues and other people who you might have to present yourself well in front of and be well spoken in front of, but now you're looking at yourself, and that might take you away from the conversation. And then you have to re-immerse yourself into the conversation, and that might be where some of the fatigue comes from, because you have to catch yourself up. You know what I mean. You're paying attention to how you look, and not so much of the content. So it might be a bit of a distraction. Yeah.
So you're saying distraction. That's your.
I say distraction. Yep.
Frank, I got a question for you, and that is, you've seen a lot of people, professionals first starting out. Are they usually comfortable or uncomfortable when they first get in front of the camera?
Um, Definitely person. I mean, it's person by person. It could be some people are naturally like that. It's funny. A lot of people I feel like that think that they're very comfortable. As soon as they get in front of the camera, they will be completely quiet and kind of clam up a little bit. But then the other people, where you're going out and interviewing random people, if you're at like some school or something like that, and you need to get like a stand up with somebody, the ones that always want to be like, oh, I can't go on camera. I'm not going to be like I'm not good on camera. They'll go on and they'll be the best ones.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's not like in a professional sense, but just people being in front of a camera
Just the way
at
it
all.
is.
Right.
Hey, Joe.
Um,
Joe, how do you handle talent who seem great off camera, and then when they get on camera, they're struggling and obviously getting nervous? Is there some techniques you've learned over the years?
Yeah, everything Frank and Gosh just said,
Okay.
you're still talking about even professional talent have to evolve to that. So there isn't one trick that I could use or one thing. I mean, people use that phrase, oh, make the camera your friend, ignore everybody in the room. It's impossible. It really is. Um, in a professional environment, like in a studio, actually even on location where Frank was just speaking, one of the things I try to at least tell the crew is don't stare at the talent. Be aware of your head nodding, or be aware of the fact that you're looking at your phone and not paying attention.
Right.
Because people see that, and that is a distraction. That sets up uncomfortableness. And then wrapped into what Gloss said is once you start thinking about things other than what you're saying,
Right.
and you're no longer engaged in a conversation, everything blows up
yeah.
because you don't even know where you are. You don't know what's going on. But let me point out something, again, we know because we're in the industry. When you're in a studio, there's a monitor, a floor monitor, there's a program monitor. They have different names for it. But what it is, it gives talent the chance to see what's going to air. So they actually see themselves and see what's going on, but they've become accustomed to seeing that. So for talent to get on a Zoom isn't going to make a difference.
Yeah.
But for somebody else getting on a Zoom and they're looking at themselves, it's hard. My suggestion to anybody doing those meetings is don't look at your box.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I mean,
we just had this conversation.
yeah, like I obviously I can see myself and I can see you guys, but I'm trying to look in the lens of the camera, but like in my peripherals, obviously I can see you, and like if one of you is talking, it's weird to, even right now I'm looking directly at the lens, but I'm talking to you guys, and it's, yeah, unless the camera was in the middle of my screen,
Right.
that, which would be cool, which would have the other an actual camera in a studio would be, but
That's really funny. I've heard one of the names, and me being a layman in the group, I heard it was called a confidence monitor. Is that something that's they would call that type of monitor for the talent?
Yeah, they might call that in communications school in your freshman year.
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
I've never heard of it either.
No, I heard, and it's kind of funny because this whole story we're talking about is, it's supposed, if it's named a confidence monitor, it stresses women out more than guys. So that's really just an
Yeah, it's because I don't want to do the gender thing here because I know enough guys who have the same issues about looking at themselves.
Yep.
But that's I didn't say Klaus.
Come on. I was waiting for that.
But yeah, I mean it's hard, and it's just you have to just get comfortable. I mean, all of us work with a lot of female talent who are not concerned at all about being on camera and are not concerned at all about being themselves.
Right.
And don't forget also they're primed that before they go on, all of us, any talent on air, you've got makeup, you've got hair, you've got producers, everybody's looking at you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as a sidebar to that, as I just said that, that's one of the things that it took me a while to get used to as a producer, because I'm staring at my talent on the set before we go, and I'm looking at them, and they're like, "Why? What's the matter? What's the matter?" And I was like, "No. Because I have to look as I'm looking at the composition. So do the cameras. I mean, we're not looking at you."
Right.
Yeah, it's just the composition of the actual shot, and especially in like a smaller crew, like if there's one or two camera guys in the studio, I mean, Glass can attest to that as well. You're paying attention to that stuff as well and trying to catch things, whether it be something that's on the talent's shoulder, like a piece of lint or something like that. I mean, you pay attention to all that stuff, or be like, hey, like, it's also depending on how comfortable you are with that person in the studio. Of also looking, I mean, because you're looking out for them. Everyone's putting on the same product, so you're trying to look out for that, really, in the end.
Right. Building off of that too. I think part of being in person and speaking to someone's face. Think about it like if Joe, if you and I are having a conversation offline, I'm engaging with you. I see your facial record. You're the way you're reacting to me. You know what I mean? I feel like once talent on set, they get into a zone where you're having this conversation with somebody, and the cameras kind of go away, I feel like, at certain times, and where it just turns into an actual, a talk, and you're making good points, and you're actually conversating. You kind of lose a lot of that when you're staring at a zoom lens, and you're not really seeing reactions, and you're not getting body language. You're not picking up on hand signals, or like if someone's kind of like nodding with you, agreeing with you, or disagreeing with you. It kind of just adds that element, that a conversation has that you don't get through a Zoom call.
Yep.
Lou, before you jump off on this, let me just give you and it was because it's timely. I was at a meeting yesterday, face to face, on the tables, actually meeting, and it was with one of my production coordinators from years ago, and we were just talking about things. And he's out doing a lot of interviews. He's doing all these national interviews, so obviously everything is on Zoom. And this particular conversation came up, and he said it is the hardest thing he's ever done was to take an interview because he doesn't think his personality is coming out. He doesn't feel like they're getting to know him. Yeah. He made a great statement. He said, I'd rather do a phone call than an actual Zoom call. He said, because at least on a phone, you're visualizing, you're not thinking, you're not seeing it. And that was such a huge tell. And I said, it's funny. I said, tomorrow we have a show coming up, and part of that conversation is this.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely, a big appropriate statement to that. Sorry, I just had to throw that in because it was real.
Yeah, it was absolutely real. Yeah, amazing. So, speaking of observing and looking at things, this is kind of a yes or no question for everybody, and then we'll go a little further into it. I want to talk about flight attendants. So we're walking. We've all boarded planes, and as soon as you get through the gangway and you get onto the plane, there's the flight attendant standing there, and she's greeting you or he's greeting you. Do you guys think that they're just greeting you, or do you think there's anything else involved in that? Joe, yes or no?
Yes.
Frank, yes or no?
Yes. What? Why are you answering? You already had yours. Yes.
Frank, yes or no?
Yes.
Laz, yes or no?
Yeah. I'll go. I'll
Okay,
on the yes side.
I'm going to give everybody the answer, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit. And I want to hear what your yeses were. Yeah, in fact, they are actually looking a lot deeper than just saying hi. And what they're actually looking for are their ABPs, which stands for able-bodied people. So if something goes bad or breaks the wrong way, the flight attendants need to know who they can call on. And they also do that when they're walking up and down the aisle. So that's kind of an interesting thing. I never thought about it, but they're always, there with the hellos and all that other stuff. But anyway, Joe, your yes was to what? And then I want to ask you, have you ever walked onto a set and then assessed the whole thing and said, who here can help me out and what's going to go on and who can I count on for what? So
well, my yes was because I was confused and didn't know how to answer a yes and no to that kind of question. So I just said yes, and that's why I then said no. So I had options.
Good.
No, actually, what I would think now that you brought that to my attention, I probably would have thought they're looking for who's high, who's going to be trouble, looking more for the negative. This guy's wrecked. He's walking on. He's already going to, he's got a bad attitude.
Right.
That's what I would have assumed they were looking for.
Right.
Who's high? Like, there's so many high people walking.
That's number one. That's number one. First thing.
All right, that guy's high. That guy's high. That guy's high. All right, he's sober. I can count on that guy.
That's great. Frank, you're speaking of being high, not that high, but traveling and flying all over the country and the world and working with different crews and different events and arenas and all sorts of situations. Do you go in with any kind of a strategy, like that able-bodied person strategy? Like, okay, this is brand new. I'm doing the U.S. Open. Who can I count on for what? Do you have a strategy for that?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, because just to compare it to the first question you asked with the flight attendants, they have a lot shorter of a time, and they're not like getting to know people.
Right.
So I would do more of that. Like I would talk to everybody in the first couple hours, first few days or whatever, especially if it's like a long event like that. Sorry, I keep looking down at you, not at the camera like I'm supposed to. I would more assess it that way and then be like, okay, this person I can kind of like trust to do this, or if I need, if I can count on this person to do this or answer these questions, if I have a problem or something, I can go to them. But like comparing it to a flight attendant, they might be, they're just straight up judging you how you look physically or how you carry yourself onto the plane for those 10 seconds that you walk by them or they walk by to make sure your seatbelt's on. So, I mean, in a way, yes, it's the same, but a different type of assessment for me. But I absolutely do that, yes.
Interesting. Glaz, we're going to do a sports thing, which is dangerous for me because you guys know how good I am with sports. So the question is to you, Glaz, when you are in that same situation for the able-bodied thing, is there a type of a person you would look for? Is there a common thread for, like, if you're, let's use baseball. If you're a left fielder, it's not that big of a leap to jump to right field, right? But if you're a left fielder and you want to be a pitcher, that's a big jump if you had no experience. Do you see anything when you're out there in the field that the production field, at the ball field?
Yeah, definitely. So, in terms of sports are a little different. That's more, your physical ability is going to play a huge part there. But I'm going to say, like, if I show up on set, for instance, and I'm doing Steadicam or something like that, I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of character. I think I can tell within the first 5 to 10 minutes of talking to somebody just by getting their knowledge of set and on location, whatever we're doing, and I can pretty much tell and assess if they're going to be able to do A or B. Maybe I'll trust this guy to pull my cable. This guy just talked to me for 5 minutes like an idiot with no knowledge about set or anything like that. I'm not going to trust him to get me from A to B without me, being confident that I'm not going to fall on my ass. So yeah, I think in a quick conversation, and Frank, I think you would agree to this as well, where you can kind of just tell just by shooting, just by talking, just by having a normal conversation, a generic knowledge about the industry, you can tell if somebody's going to be able-bodied or not, and that's kind of how I go about things.
It's a normal conversation with very specific questions.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Like so if you answer one way, I'd say, okay, I know I wouldn't really ask you to do that. Or I know, like, if somebody's helping me build a jib or whatever, and they were like, oh yeah, I've done this. Like, I've done this a bunch of times, whatever. And then I'll start asking specific questions. And if, depending on how they answer, then it'd be, okay, I know that you haven't, but I'm not going to like call you out for it.
Yeah.
Right.
But I just know how far I can, use you. And I know how much direction I need to give you, and specifically direction or not. Or it's like, okay, cool, I don't have to worry about that. Like, if Gloz works with me, he's done it enough. Like he knows how I could just be like, okay, you go do that, I'll handle this. But there's just those different levels of.
I got a question.
Wait, I didn't get my chance.
I know. I'm coming to you right now.
Before you even ask me my question, I have two follow-ups. One, I raised both of them perfectly because that trick of asking specifically and knowing what that's the first skill set they had to learn. Yeah. Because I use it all the time.
Yeah.
And second, let me qualify what Gloz meant when he finds somebody who wants to pull his cable.
Oh my God.
It's an actual wire that's tethered to his camera that as he moves around, somebody has to, the cable wrangler has to be there to move the cable around. Yeah. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't need any lawsuits. I don't need to get, all of a sudden, we don't want to trend because we said a stupid thing.
I got to trust you.
Ask me the question you want.
I was going to say, and Gloz usually says that in a completely wireless environment.
Got to be safe too. Safety is a big issue.
So, Joe, the question I was going to ask you is, do you find equal, more or less value in asking a question and judging somebody, or taking a question from them and judging them on what their able-bodied person readiness is? That make sense?
I have no idea what you just said.
I said, can you get more out of asking somebody something, or when they ask you a question, can you say, that was just really whacked out question. I don't think this guy can help me at all.
No. And I'll answer that in what I was supposed to answer the first time when you asked me the question that I ignored.
Good.
When I walk onto a set,
yep.
Do I assess the crew? Yes. But what I'm looking for is not their skill set to do the job that they were brought in to do. I look for, if there's a problem, who can think fast enough and who can react to me. Because I don't need you thinking me. I have to execute, and I need things done. Do this, you do that, you do that. I mean, it's literally a surgeon working with surgical nurses. Be on the ready to. So that's what I look for. Do you know how I think? Can you react to me, or are you going to start questioning everything that I'm saying we need to get this done? Not that I'm always right in the way, but it's the way.
Right.
So that's what I assess. I don't, and questions, answers, I don't really have I never thought about it, and I don't really know what the appropriate answer for me would be.
Yeah, fair enough.
You made Gloz smile and me, because we just, not only did we just pass Star Wars Day and you said this is the way from The Mandalorian. You literally said it's not the right way, but this is the way.
He's back.
I've been waiting to do that for the first 2 episodes now. So
you're welcome, bro.
That's
can I build on that for a second? I feel like also Lou, maybe this is kind of what you meant when you asked Joe the first time.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell if someone asks, all right, there's no such thing as a dumb question, but there is, you know what I mean? If somebody asks you something, I feel like you could tell if someone doesn't know something about something and they come to you specifically to ask you about something that has to do with television, you can tell by their question, their demeanor,
Right.
and what they're actually saying and the terminology they use if they're knowledgeable or if they're not knowledgeable. And
Right.
Lou, I think that might answer the first question you asked.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good answer. That's a great answer. Thank you, Gloss.
That's kind of where I was leading it. Joe, I'm coming back to you. I wanted to talk about a bigger issue, and that has to do with this about finding able-bodied people. One of the courses you have coming up, GPS, Guaranteed Production Success, you talk a lot about cross-training. So what value is being cross-trained? Explain that for a second, and then just talk about how that can help you get your job done, but also empower the people around you to make sure it all happens.
Yeah, cross training is a core function of everything I've ever done and anybody I've ever taught, because you need to be able to understand what's going on around you. We work in a very complex environment. There's a lot of stuff moving. There's a lot of moving parts, and we're all interdependent on each other. And if you don't understand what that person's job is, and if you don't understand the critical aspects of what they're doing,
Yeah.
you're going to cross over and things are going to end up falling apart. So you have that as a primary issue. Then the secondary issue, which is your career. Things change. Pandemics hit. You have to be able to alter what you do and know other things, because today you may be a camera op, but tomorrow they may not use cameras. So you're going to need to switch into audio, or audio may go away and you may have to switch into lighting. So you need to be able to do all kinds of various things. And the quick story to that, my background is because I came out of the music industry. The music industry is built on that. I never even knew that was we all do everything. So, going from the performance, most musicians play several instruments. And then you get into the studio, most technical people can sit in many positions. And then you get into live performance, many people can do many things. So and it's done with a very small group of people. Ferro Productions, the production aspect of FerroCity, functioned because I didn't need 80 people to do a show, because everybody on my crew could do a lot of things. And that helps everybody. And I've seen them progress in the industry utilizing that mentality. So cross-training is a bottom line for me. That's the first thing. You have to learn other things. You may not become proficient at everything, but you definitely have to have an appreciation for it. Frank and Glaz can attest to.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, I was going to say, you have two absolute testimonials, and not just because we're a part of this, but just, there's a million other ones the ones that got it and ran with that and keep that mindset, moving throughout our careers. I think that's a huge reason why we're all successful, because it's like you said, I don't need to know how to be an A1. I don't need to know how to do all these other jobs, but I understand enough of it to know, that it's all useful. It's all, it's all very necessary. And I understand the shortcomings of all the other positions, and understand how hard everything is to bring together. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's, and the fact of stepping into another position like that, or, helping each other out in a very small group, like you said. Yeah. So, that's it.
Perfect. And on
And
that,
you know what?
Yeah.
Before you go, Lou,
Yeah, go
just
ahead.
because Glaz with Urban Visual, that's a good example of what ends up happening when you're launching something and you don't have $1 million budget to hire all these different disciplines.
Yeah.
Right, Glaz?
Yeah. I'd say, aside from the amount of help I get from Frank running Urban Visuals, I wear a lot of hats. You know what I mean? I edit, I shoot, I do a lot of the business side, a lot of the marketing that I'm learning, and it's all just been as a testament to Ferro Productions and you guys giving me these core tendencies on how to build your core set of skills up to where you can't just survive on being great at shooting camera. You can't survive just doing audio, especially when something like a pandemic hits. You know, you got to be able to pivot. You got to be able to do different things. You got to be able to work well as a team. And you have to be able to wear different hats and things like that. And that's something I've definitely learned the hard way. And, I guess only the hard way. There's only one way to learn that, I guess. But yeah, 100%, Joe. I agree with you.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. That's our show for this week. Look forward to next week's show and keeping things moving. And Joe, thank you. Gloss, thank you. Frank, thank you. And we will see everybody next time.
And
Thanks
thank
for
you,
hosting,
Lou.
Lou. Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Ciao.